Hi, Owen. First of all, thank you so much for taking time. And I know like how busy you are, but I was just very keen to know about you, how you are handling university and your own like PhD study as well. So, for our audience, could you like just tell a bit about yourself and about your background?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me for this podcast, first of all. I think this might be my first podcast, so we'll see how it goes. So my background is I'm from England. I spent about 20 years teaching in England, and I became an assistant principal at our high school in charge of student welfare. And whilst I was doing that, I got the opportunity to work with Pfizer Foundation on some forensic science training for teachers, which allowed me the opportunity to fly to the US each summer for a couple of weeks to do some training, specifically with actually Dr. Henry Lee's crime lab.
Yeah.
And that's where I met my wife, and she came over to the UK. And then when we had a child, she was getting a little bit homesick. She needed a little bit more help because I live by my family live all around the world. So we decided to come back to the US, and so I did some private school teaching, and then last 2 years I've been doing my public school administration license, which I gained last summer, and during the course of applying for new jobs. The assistant director for the Graduate Office of Graduate and International Student Life position became available. So I was interested in what that position would be in order to help students, internationally minded students. The director, Steve, I happen to know outside of school. Our daughters are in the same class. So we were talking about it, and I decided to apply because I felt that I could lend my experience. But I also decided from doing my administration license, American license last year at the University of Bridgeport, that in my final class, I was doing some work on social and emotional learning and doing a research project. And my professor said, this research project is so good, you should probably go do this for a doctorate dissertation.
Yeah.
And I went, no, I don't want to do that. That's like way too much work, way too much writing.
Okay.
And then I started thinking about it, going, that would be actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
Good to do some research in that area. And so I thought about it some more, and then I thought, well, how would this benefit me? And it was like, okay, well, I'd applied for several positions as a principal, and this qualification, doctorate qualification, would help me in that search as well. So as well as it trying to help me with my professional career, just the interest of doing some research in that area is a really important topic, especially post-COVID, and so I was really interested to do that. So I had to write a proposal and apply to the course, and they accepted me. And I've just finished my second semester. I start my third semester next week, and the course has an international dimension. So about a third of my classes are on looking at education in an international context.
Yeah.
Some of which I did previously when I was in England. We look at PISA results and how education systems around the world work. But also, one of my favorite classes I've taken was a cultural intelligences class, global cultural intelligence class. And just learning about how we can communicate better and work better interculturally, and just some of that thinking in improving your cultural intelligence levels. It was actually a very fascinating class.
What
It was
do you
very
like
exciting.
most about it?
Well, what I liked about it was, so we used a lot of text from Thomas Inkson. He has a book called Cultural Intelligence. And so the book is really about talking about stories. So he would go around the world and talk to companies and give stories about how inadvertently, companies would be trying to do something, employees would be trying to communicate, and it would fail. Like, for example, there's one story of a company in Asia going out to dinner with the Asian company, and the host, trying to, in their style, say, hey, this is a great restaurant, but it's not the best restaurant, that kind of thing. And the English company that went out there went, oh, don't worry, it'll be fine, which was not the response that somebody who would be culturally immersed in that area would know to give. So it was lots of little stories like that about how we inadvertently mistake cultural communication and cause problems. And I feel strongly that here we need to do a lot of work as a university and as students of learning to grow with one another. We have a very diverse international population, which is unlike most universities. We obviously have a very large graduate population from Southeast Asia.
And it must be tiring for you, like back and forth to understand everyone's cultures and all.
So I do understand it because, like, I speak English, right? And I live in America, and they don't speak English. They speak American. And so I am constantly battling with myself. Do I stick with the way that I say things, like, wearing a jumper, or, get the stuff out of the boot of a car, or put it in the rubbish bin, or do I cede to the Americanisms of put the trash in the garbage, and hoodie and cleats instead of boots? That's the best story, right? So my first year of coaching at this school, I was coaching soccer, and I put up a big notice on the wall: please bring your boots to training. And unbeknownst to me, everybody looked at it and hadn't got a clue what I was talking about, because Americans don't use the word boots when they go training for soccer. They use the word cleats. To me, cleats is a very specific type of boot that you wouldn't wear in the sport that I play. So having to try and learn, so I'm constantly translating, right?
Yeah.
And so if I'm constantly translating, then someone who comes from India or Pakistan or Nigeria or Gambia or Colombia or Australia or Ukraine and the other 40 countries that we have represented on campus, they are constantly translating, right? And their faculty are expecting them to work in a specific American style of education, which for some students is very alien. That's not a style that they're used to
it's completely different for other international students. Yes.
So not only the dynamics of the classroom, where you are being asked to work in groups and give presentations and ask questions and answer questions, whereas in other parts of the world it's purely lecture. You're told the information, you have to remember the information and write it down.
By end of the day, you have to give exam in 3 hours.
Exactly.
You need to justify and explain yourself that I know entire thing, and that's how you're gonna get the marks. But here, what I feel, it's more freely, more acceptable. You give do assignments and then a presentation, a lot of things. There are freedom to even go switch the subject, which is really good. I mean, this is the flexibility they are providing, and that's how international students are liking, and you are getting so many people, students
and our university is very focused, especially at graduate level, on skills development, right? Because these are skills that we need for the world of work, right? And I currently am sitting on a leadership task force and a student employment task force, and all of our conversations and discussions are about learning competencies like teamwork and communication and critical thinking, and all of these things that we try and get students to learn and develop, because we feel those are really important when they go to work, and especially when they are trying to interview, so they can demonstrate those competencies. And so part of my role is to help students understand how the American classroom works, and that it's a lot different to maybe how they have experienced it for 20 years of their life. But also to try and help our faculty understand the style of education that you have had thus far, so that we can bridge the gap. Because if the gap is too large, students are going to fail. And because of the way that grading is done, you don't necessarily know that you're failing until like 2 weeks before the end of the semester, which from my way of working at high school, we can't do that. So trying to bridge that gap and understanding, and I think that's what it's all about, right? So if we understand where we come from and we understand our cultures and our beliefs, we don't necessarily have to agree with them all the time, but we understand them and know how you're thinking and where you're coming from, so that we can meet and move people to a common ground, right?
Got it.
And then half my role obviously is also about our cultural experiences. So
how you understand? I mean, like every students are coming like from different country, different background.
So
mental health is different.
I have
how do you manage to understand that?
Yeah, I kind of blab it sometimes, right? Because I have one advantage in that I have traveled the world a fair bit. So I lived in Brazil for 2 years. I've been to Malaysia and Singapore, where my mother lived for 10 years. My uncles live in Australia. My sister lives in Australia. I'm from England. The schools that I went to in England obviously had a large Indian population. I lived in Nottingham, near Leicester, near Birmingham, near Bradford. So a very Indian population, Bangladesh population. A lot of West Indian population in Nottingham, where I lived. Nigerians, I had a lot of Nigerian diplomats and government people at the school that I went to. So I'm fortunate that I've had, and South Africans and Australians come to the UK. I'm fortunate to have been immersed in that and had that as part of my life and growing up.
And that's helping you now, like, to
exactly.
understand their culture.
So people ask me now, well, so we take India, it's probably the most complex cultural country on the planet, because if you can think of it, it exists in the city with 15 million other people all at the same time, and that is going to create tensions, which I often read about. And that's the other thing. I like history, and I read like BBC News every day. So and that's very worldwide in its delivery. So. It's important that we try and learn to communicate. And the better we communicate, the better we understand our cultures and where we're coming from. And that's why I like that course so much. It's like, why did we not have this course as a freshman teacher, not as a doctoral student, because culture is so important, so that we understand one another.
Especially state is different. Every state, like, people are different, students comes from different culture, food is different, likeness is different, the way they are like wearing, face wise they are like different. So India is complex and difficult to understand, but they the best part of they accept, they embrace like all the challenges, and they are ready to get into like, okay, let's. I think like you might have found like some students which is like good.
So and also part of my experience is we have here on campus international festival, which are called iFest, which we had a couple of weeks ago. And I've been doing that in my various schools for a long time. But this was amazing, because what we had, it wasn't just a food cultural people dressing up in their costumes, but we also had the performances as well, right? So that was so rich and diverse, because we had over 20 countries represented on our tables for food and for national dress from all parts of the world. And then we had exactly, and explain and then all we're trying to do is explain how they live, and and then we had 6, 10, 12 performances from Nigeria, who did a lot of the African continent, shall we say. It wasn't just Nigerians, but the continent of Africa shared values of dance and poetry and song and culture, and then we had a lot of kind of Bollywood type stuff and
Yeah.
performances, and then we had. Yeah, no, it was because it's full of energy, right? And how we express ourselves is really important. And I think the more that we show culture, the more people go, wow, actually, that's kind of cool. Do you know what I mean? Rather than go, oh, that's India, that's over there, or it's Nigeria, we're America, look at us, or we're Great Britain, and look at us. But the more that we see culture in performances, in song, and in food, that is probably the easiest way to break down and barriers. And like one of our graduate student assistants, is Muslim. He's from a very background himself. And so he was celebrating Ramadan last week. And I said, hey, we got Eid Mubarak coming up. Where's my sweets? Like, I want sweets because, you celebrate lots of sweets on that day and have a really good feast. And I remember from my time at Putnam Science, that was initially a Turkish school, that's what we would do. We would have big celebration and lots of candy.
Correct.
So it's like, where is it? So like yesterday, he finally said, look, it's straight off the plane from India. And I had, I can't remember what it's called, but they're triangles with like coconut and stuff in them with a silver foil on the outside.
Okay.
And it's like, and he said, it came in this morning, he says, you haven't finished it? I said, there's like 50 in there. I had like 10 yesterday. So yeah, just enjoying them. Yeah, absolutely.
So we have like in Indian, we just try to like
yes,
try, taste it, like how it is, tell us. And the more you experience, the more you indulge with like, those people, like you get to know the culture and get to know like, okay, why it's doing, why they are doing and how they are doing. And that's how like you feel like, oh my God, I mean, this is something like really nice.
And I think for us, it's not just important for us to learn other people's cultures, but for everybody to learn everybody's cultures. So trying to encourage our Indian students to go to Chinese New Year, to Lunar New Year, right? And enjoy their performances and their cultural food. To have everybody go to the Taste of Africa event, right? So that they're learning those cultures and like intermingling. So the creation of the International Student Association, where it's not just the Indian Association, it's not just the African Association, it's not just Saudi Arabian Association or the Korean Association. It's everybody coming together and sharing everybody's experiences, because
and these functions,
those are what you remember for your life, right? You don't remember necessarily, F equals ma derivations in your physics class, right? What you remember is the conversations and the experiences you shared with your students and going to events. So, we have 4,000 students and we had 600 people at iFest. Can you imagine if we had 2,000 people at iFest? How big and amazing that would be if everybody would come and celebrate.
And comes in a one roof, exploring like see each other's culture, the dressing, the tradition, and that's how like you get indulged like more. Okay, that's how like you are doing. That's
and then
fun.
you can have those individual conversations with people about religion or about politics or about a way of life, right? I was fortunate when I was with the Pfizer Foundation coming over, they would bring people from all of their 10 research sites or factory sites from around the world. So we had people from Singapore and people from Mexico, people from Australia, people from Canada, people from America and Europe. And we would sit around and we studied during the day. And it was like, that's the same, you can do that anywhere in the world, right? The most important thing was the conversations we had in the bar or at dinner or in the evening, just chilling, sitting around and sharing, well, what is teaching like in your country? What is teaching like in yours? And guess what? Teaching's teaching, no matter where you go around the world, right? The problems are still the same. There's still this tension between teachers and students and parents and administrators and government. It's the same everywhere. So, and you go, wow, we're not so different. Do you know what I mean?
It's human. I mean, like everything human. And they have like challenges, they have happiness, they have like feeling, the same feeling. when I came here, like I experienced the same thing. Like, yeah, there are like Americans. There are some students are like really good. There are certain students are like, yeah, I'm a little like
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
trying to
yeah, yeah. Well,
indulge
that would be me. Yeah.
some are really funny. They try to experience your culture. So it's something like that's how I feel like globalization comes up. That's how like you understand like more student, more culture, and like you come up with a business idea or like maybe like a research or whatever it is. So Owen, I would like to drag your attention towards like since so many students are here, diversification are here, different country, different thing. So how do you handle, how do you understand these person, because these people they don't come to you saying like this is my mental health.
Yes.
And I have like problem.
Yes.
Mental health is something like which is very personal. You have to get into the person, you have to understand and you realize what is happening around you. And I understand you, you are filled, surrounded by students,
Yeah.
so many students, so many cultures. So this is something challenge, and if you can just
Yeah.
explain
No,
that.
this is a really important
Yeah.
topic, and I'm glad you asked it. So mental health is probably the number one thing that is important for everybody globally, right?
Exactly.
Because if you have good mental health, you're going to be able to be successful and resilient, and enjoy life,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's also very, very personal. We have about 8 billion people on the planet. So that's probably about 8 billion different types of mental health issues that we have, right? And also link into that culture. So different cultures approach mental health differently, right? So I remember when I grew up, you know, like if you don't want to get out of bed, your dad used to slap you on the back of your head, get on with it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Just grow some and you'll be good. Yeah, keep going, keep going, keep going. Good, stiff British upper lip, right? We keep going in the face of adversity. Just get on with it, right? And a lot of cultures, that's kind of the way it still is. And some cultures now, they've moved and realized that that doesn't really work anymore today. The way that children grow up today, they need more support, more social networking. You know, social media has almost become non-social media because, like, I have a child, you know, sits on her phone all day, 24 hours a day, right? Whereas, like, if I was having a problem at school, it was just at school. I didn't have to worry about it when I was at home. Now with social media, it's in your face all the time, right? How many likes did I get? Oh, I didn't get any likes. Oh my God, the world has ended. Right? So all of this is really important. And this is just the way that the society has evolved and changed, right? So mental health is really important. It's very important to our university for both staff and for our students, right? So we have a lot of systems in place. We have our CAPS counseling program. We have a number of other programs that support them, that students can opt into. They can go see them. They can be referred. They can do a crisis helpline. I also sit on one of the university's welfare teams where students who are having issues around university, not just about mental health, but other things, we discuss to find ways to support them. And a lot of students do struggle, especially when they're away from home.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially like in international schools, they
oh
feel
my
like-
goodness, like right now, like you know, in England, like there's a big coronation happening next week. There's a big street party for 4 days, and like, I'm sitting here going, or like that favorite food that you like at home, like McVitie's digestive biscuits, my favorite.
Okay.
Right, cup of tea and a biscuit always solves the world in my grandmother's house, right? So can I get them? No, it's difficult, right? So having stuff that reminds you of home, having contact, and that's where social media does work. Like I have a Facebook account for one reason only, so I can connect with my family. They live around the world, Australia, Thailand, England, Ireland, but in different time zones. And so it's impossible to keep up with them on the phone. So Facebook, it was like messages or WhatsApp messages, works really, really well to like share stories and what's going on. So I kind of know what my brothers are doing, right? Whereas, you know, when I was growing up, I remember my grandmother's house, her 3 sons, she had 3 sons and 6 daughters. 3 sons all lived in Australia and New Zealand. Well, you couldn't communicate with them except by letter, which took a week or 10 days, right? And if you phoned them, you'd have to go through the opera. And I remember Christmas Day trying to phone and doing a telex, wish you were here, stop, blah, 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 stop. And it was like so slow and like it's very, very difficult. Today, it's very easy to stay connected.
Yeah.
So for me, talking to our students, it's like be connected, stay connected, because the more you talk, and share issues and problems that you have, the smaller that mountain becomes, right? So our well-being becomes better. Having our social events, getting people to come to the social events and share all that culture.
When you see each other, and like then
singing.
you understand.
Yes, and just like singing, like everyone sings in the bath, right? It makes you feel a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
So understanding that, especially our international students or students who are from the West Coast of America. East Coast is very different by itself, right? We all like our comforts from home, right? So having a little bit of that, but being open to learning new things and new cultures and new ways of doing things, right? Celebrating our successes, having the awards ceremony that we had last Sunday for our students, being celebrated for the hard work that you've done and rewarded the achievements that you've chosen. It's great for your mental well-being, right? And so the more that we understand how students are affected or how people are affected in general, the more we can identify. And we do have a lot of staff who are trained in mental health first aid to recognize signs and to suggest to people or discreetly message our counseling team to say, hey, can you go check on this student, do a welfare check for us, right? We have the Live Safe app with our police station, and they can also do welfare checks. Dean of Students Office, that's the biggest thing that they do is welfare.
Yeah.
How do we help our students feel happy? Because if you feel happy, you're going to be successful in class. And if you're successful in class, you're going to get a job and everyone's going to go, yes, University of New Haven, that's a great place to go. I enjoyed my experience there. And so it's self-promotion, right? So it's really important that we all work together and recognize that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have a bad day. Right? Like watching rugby for me is important. And so when England are playing or Bath, my hometown, are playing and I can't do that, I get really sad, right? But then, like someone saying, oh, do you see this clip? And it's like, yeah, let's go. Let's have a great time, right? So it's okay to not be okay and to have bad days. But if you're having more bad days than good days, first step, recognize that. Second step, go talk to someone, a friend, a colleague, or a member of staff, and we'll go, right, let's go. How can we help you? What can we do to help you feel better, to get better, so that you feel good about yourself, so that you are able to engage and enjoy life and be successful. And the biggest way of improving your mental health, go to events. Go to the movie night.
Indulge
be
yourself,
with
the
people. Not online. Like my daughter talks to people online all the time, but she's with them at school as well. If she was just online, like that was the worst thing about the pandemic, when we was all sat in our house, not being able to see anybody. Mental health was really, 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 really tough for everybody, including and especially children, because they are very, very sociable. They talk non-stop at school, right? And so even though they're on their phones, it's not the same. We have to have this personal interaction. And that's why we want our graduate students, our undergrad students, our international students, come to events. The best thing about American universities is that most of these social events are free. Oh my God! Like some days there are over 200 events going on in this campus, and it's free.
Yeah.
Like, went to university in the UK for 3 years. I don't think I went to one thing that was free.
Yeah.
Like, if I went to the pub, I had to pay for my beer. If I went to play rugby, I had to pay for my match dues. If I wanted to do this club, I had to pay for it. Like, there was no event ever free. Like, even graduation wasn't free. I had to pay for my cap and gown and my certificate.
But now, students, they are getting the opportunity, and they should definitely get the leverage.
Absolutely. You know, and like, we took a group during spring break to DC. And it was a whole mix of students. It was international students. It was domestic students. We had some undergrad students, some graduate students. We went to DC, and it was fantastic because the best bit was on the train. We took them on the train, and we were like, oh my God, it's going to be like, oh my God. Actually, when it was on the train, it was 4 hours of non-stop chit-chat, non-stop talking. Right, people were really having a great time, and on the way back, they were playing cards and silly games and just enjoying each other's company. That so elevates your mental health and your connection and your belonging, and like, it just gets you going. So the more you can get involved, the more you can do things, the better.
You see each other in the
way. So now I'm walking down the corridors, and I'm walking up the street, and people going, hey, how are you doing today?
It's like them, like
exactly. Yes.
Closely.
Yes.
Become close.
Yes. And like I had a student who was having some great difficulties. She had great difficulties, and like, how do I help? Oh, do you know what? I know this person from the DC trip who is from the same area. I can connect them together and give them some support and some love, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to see him and said, hey, because I now have that relationship. Hey, can you help me? I got this student. You need some TLC.
Yeah.
Right? And she said, yes, let's go.
Okay.
Right? And it was great because we'd had this connection and we'd been in these events. And I think that's just wonderful.
So, like, despite everything, and you have been working like in university quite a long time, have you come across like by any students like where you felt little that no, that person needs help, he didn't come across to you, and there are like certain students who cannot come and push themselves like for the events and all, you just feel like on bed and all. So did you come across
so we do come across that. In fact, I have a case today. And I think a lot of that is about embarrassment. Right? Embarrassment. You don't want to admit that you're failing. Right? You don't want to admit that you're struggling, particularly to somebody outside, right? I'm a grad student. I should be successful. I've got this. You know, I've been great all my life, right? And particularly for our international students who might be struggling with language, who might be struggling with the way of learning. It's not rote learning and memorizing a textbook. It's about giving presentations and working with groups and that kind of stuff. It's okay to be struggling, right? That's why it's university. You're not expected to be brilliant. I've done 25 years of teaching. I've done 2 master's degrees, a teaching certificate, coaching certificate, and I'm doing my doctorate class. And my last semester in program evaluation, I struggled. It was really hard, really difficult. And every week I dreaded the assignment. How do I deal with that? I have to go talk to somebody. I have to have the confidence within myself to say it's okay not to know.
Okay.
And it's not embarrassing to say, hey, I need help. Right? And unfortunately, we do get students who don't ask for help until it's too late.
Okay. And did you like come across like a specific any student and like you identify or like some staff identify?
So staff are very good at identifying, right? Particularly academically if they're not doing well, right? And so they will refer and we'll go, okay, what's happening, what's going on? Let's go talk to that student. And those students, they get the help that they need in time. Then there are students who, I had a student who had a housing issue, right? Basically had become homeless, been living home in their car for a week because of an issue, but didn't realize that they could come to us to get help in the first place. Now, we can only offer support and ideas, but support is better than nothing, right? And it just makes you feel like, okay, it's good. Like, and I had a student from Southeast Asia who has a language barrier, right? And was we didn't see him. Where'd you go? Like, oh, well, I went to go see my brother. Oh, okay, you have a brother here?
Okay.
Oh, that's so fantastic. Right, what's going on? By the way, you need to be in class. Part of your grade is to be in class. You can't just disappear for a week and just turn the assignment in at the end of it. At the end of a week,
That's how you acknowledge to students, handle the situation.
Yes, exactly. So it's all about support. It's all about we're here to help. Like I would say, 3/4 of the university's staff, their sole job here is to help students, either with academics or with welfare or with having fun events or the people who, facilities probably the only department who aren't here specifically to help the students. They just clean up the students' mess because students aren't very good at cleaning up, I noticed, even my own children. So we're all here to help you be successful. And the number one step I always ask students, please, orientation, please come and see us. Our office is here. They go, oh, where are you? I say, I'm right next to the police station, which probably doesn't help too much for people who have really negative images of police in their own country. But yeah, we're in the gatehouse, which is next door to the police station. It's a tiny little building, oldest building on campus. And we have this great office. We have a great team. And even if you don't want to come and see us, go to the Dean Students Office in Bartels upstairs, or go to ARC Services, which is on the other side of campus, or go to CAP Services, which is in the University Plaza across the street, or just speak with your professor or with the learning teaching assistant in that class who's helping the professor. Just say, I'm struggling. I need help. Or we have GSE president, we have undergrad president, we have RSO people. Go make connections and say, hey, I'm struggling. Can you help?
Okay.
I need a cup of tea. Like, I need
tea. Like a little minute
yes,
to talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just by the act of talking, it kind of helps.
Okay. Okay. So this is for international student. Here you need to indulge yourself with the university, with the events, and with the people. If you have any problem, please reach out to the people and do not struggle all alone. What is one of the interesting part of your job? Which keep you moving, inspire you, motivate you?
What motivates me every day is seeing students be successful when they have had difficulties.
We are going ahead to the next round, Owen, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions where you have to answer in a one sentence or a one word. Okay? So, what is your favorite thing to do in the city of New Haven?
Eat food.
Okay. What is your favorite thing in University of New Haven?
Talking to students and colleagues.
Okay. One thing which you would like to change in University of New Haven?
More academic support for our students.
Okay. What advice you will give to our student?
Get involved.
Okay. How do you balance your work life and your personal life?
My wife would say I don't, but I do. You have to have a calendar, and you have to sometimes say no.
Okay. What is the most important lesson you have learned being in university?
Cultural diversity and communication is key.
How do you approach problem solving thing?
Logically.
Oh, that's
I'm science trained, so everything is logic, and you have to plan it and map it out.
Okay. Favorite thing, favorite place in the University of New Haven?
Jasmine's.
Oh, okay, okay. Would you like to give one final message to our student and the audience?
Yeah. So the biggest thing, get involved. And if you don't know about anything, just come to our office and we will tell you chapter and verse, anything you want to know. All right? So if you don't read our emails, you don't read our newspapers, you don't read our social media, just come to our office and say, hey, I want to do something. what can I do? Just come and ask us.
Yay! So you are getting a lot of options, lot of things, lot of people support. So utilize those and don't struggle. So with this, we'll see you next time with the next person. So tata, bye bye.
Thank you.